Before we start the show, I'd like to talk to you about Brandwatch, which is a digital consumer intelligence company. It helps businesses better understand their consumers and buyers with clever software that enables them to analyze conversations from across the web and social media. To find out more, visit brandwatch.com, and you can sign up for up-to-the-minute consumer insights in your inbox each week at brandwatch.com/bulletin. And it's worth mentioning that my business, Automated Creative, uses Brandwatch every single day, and our business would be impossible to deliver without it. So it's of real pride that I welcome them as partners for this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a weekly podcast where I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing our industry's leaders about their vision for the future of the business. And this week's no different. I'm on a call with Miguel Magalhāes, who is brand manager at Tampax UK and Ireland at P&G. Miguel, for anyone who doesn't know who you are or what you do, could you just give us a bit of background?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having me. Sure. So my name, as you said, and very well, is Miguel Magalhāes. I'm Portuguese. I was born in Portugal. I started my career as a consultant in marketing. And also for the past 5-6 years, that's what I've been studying. So I'm the brand manager of Tampax in the UK and Ireland at P&G. And apart from that, I'm also a lecturer in marketing management. So a big part of my passion and a big part of what I do is in marketing, brand, and strategy.
Fantastic. I don't think we've had a lecturer on the podcast before. Tell me a bit about that.
Yeah, I'll actually talk a bit about this maybe later when we talk about the shiny new object. But so my passion was always to be a lecturer and a researcher in marketing. I mean, I love working in marketing as a practitioner in companies, whether it is a small, a medium, or a large company. But when I get in the class and I just talk about marketing and debate with people, and a lot of them my age, it's something else, like being paid to talk about marketing, to discuss marketing, strategy, brand with other people that love the field as well is very interesting. And then the research part as well, which I absolutely love, being able to actually give knowledge, to actually add knowledge to literature and to reveal the literature as it is. For me, it's the best thing to do in marketing. And even if I didn't work in marketing, I'm 100% sure I would do the same thing with a different field.
And so you work with students, and what advice do you give them, or what is your best bit of student advice you give to help people succeed in the industry?
Yeah, so this is actually a close one to me, and this is not just because I got in this industry as a professional somewhat recently, but also because I follow the development of a lot of students and young professionals. And I would say that from the past 3 or 4 years where I started following the development of a lot of these professionals, a lot of these students, if I could sum up the main learning that I could give other young students, young professionals that get into this industry, is that especially in this industry, especially in marketing, you have to learn by doing. That's the main thing. And there's actually a paradox that we have nowadays, which is like, okay, but if I want to learn it, I need to practice it. And if I want to practice it, I need to learn it. Well, this is a paradox that I think it's not real when you actually shift your focus from common internships or entry-level models in companies, and you shift your attention to stuff like junior enterprises that I was part of for the past 3 or 4 years. Initiatives like Isaac, for example, and the derivatives from this. So either startups, for example, that are actually starting and you can do pro bono work, or you can actually create your own opportunities. And you could start as small as like a blog or whatever it is, focusing on the field that you want to train. And then you can go from there. So just shifting this focus from the conventional models of starting to do marketing to creating your own opportunities or joining these initiatives that are really focused on students and young people, then you'll just start. And by the end of college, you'll have 2-3 years of experience. And that was my case, and it proved to be very helpful.
Yeah, that's great advice. And so what in your career so far would you say is your top marketing tip? What's that golden bit of advice do you find yourself sharing on a regular basis?
Well, I would say this is more of a heads up rather than a tip. We have a saying in Portugal that roughly is translated to blacksmith's house, wooden skewer. And this is kind of something like I think you guys say in the UK, which is like the shoemaker's son always goes barefoot. Now, what I mean with this applied to marketing, applied to what would be a marketing tip or a heads up into advertising as well, is that probably and hopefully people in the last quarter of 2021, they were planning their businesses, their brand strategy for this year, for this fiscal year. And what I see from a lot of the people that I follow, a lot of the people, and a lot of them are even my friends, is that they did their strategy for their brands, for their companies, but they really lack at least the understanding of how important it is for you to take a step back and think about yourself as well. That's what I mean with the shoemaker's son always goes barefoot. We work in marketing, we work in strategy, we work with thinking things for the future, at least the immediate future. And many times we lack that kind of thinking for ourselves. And I see how important it is with people that actually do it, and especially after the 2 years that we've had, just looking back and just taking a step back, thinking of what you've accomplished this far, if this is actually what you want to do, if you're in the right job, the right industry. And a lot of people, as you probably know, a lot of people even start in a blank page. And I think that's the result of a lot of people thinking, am I in the right place? Am I doing what I like? Does it make sense for the kind of future that I want to have? So for my fellow marketing and advertising colleagues, I would probably say that apart from doing it just for our brands, do it for yourself as well.
Once again, great advice, but very hard to do. It's so much easier to be objective about a brand or a product, and I find it's very difficult to be honest and look after your own brand. It can be very cringy and difficult, I think, is the challenge there. But anyway, Tom, different episode for sure.
Yeah, I would even say that. I mean, starting in strategy, I mean, the most important thing is knowing your consumer, right? And it almost comes to a philosophical question where people have to really understand who am I, what do I want, and probably some of these people actually understand their consumers better than they understand themselves. So it's definitely a difficult one.
Yeah, very true. This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with MadFest. Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com. So we're going to move on now to your shiny new object. And it was a new one to me, certainly in name. And I'm really interested to learn more about market orientation. So what is market orientation? I think I know what it is, but can you just describe to someone who's got no idea what it is?
Sure, Tom. And I absolutely love talking about this. Like we said, I mean, in terms of lecturing and researching, this is what I've been focusing on for the past two years. It's not a new thing. So if we really nail down what market orientation is, you'll think, okay, that makes sense. I know what it is. It is obvious. And just the fact of being obvious is something that really makes me fall in love with it. Because basically what I did for the past 2 years was I really tried to understand how marketing is practiced in organizations, both in terms of functions, structure, how it's structured in the organizations, but also what the marketing leaders think that the role of marketing is in their enterprise. And basically right now, I mean, if you go through the literature or if you talk with a lot of people, which is what I did, I interviewed about 30 marketing leaders, and there's a lot of things that people talk about, like lead generation, for example, which is a very technical thing. It's not necessarily the role of marketing. Or you go to a more broad sense of what marketing is, where people say, for example, marketing is creating value. But what I always try to do, and obviously anyone working in lecturing or researching, what I always try to do is to really understand, is this actually the truth? Like, because when you say creating value, which is what a lot of marketing professionals, academics say, if we were talking with people like engineers, they would say, okay, I mean, you create value, but I create more value than you do by creating products, by innovating, by whatever it is. So we get in this discussion where it's not up to who's right or who's wrong. It's up to who has the best argument. And it's also everyone in the enterprise, everyone in an organization, they add value. They want to add value. So for us to think that this is the marketing thing, it's in the very least, it's selfish. So basically what I've been trying to understand is, okay, if I pull the string of value creation, then I get to associated value creation, for example, which has to do with marketing and advertising people, creating brands, for example, and creating more value for something that already adds value. But if I keep pulling that string of creating value as the role of marketing, there's a lot of things that don't make sense with it. So what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to pull a different string. And the one that I pulled was market orientation. So what market orientation is, it is the degree to which enterprises, to which organizations use and or generate insights from their customers, their consumers, from their market, essentially, and to which level they then use that for the strategy. And again, probably this seems something a bit simple. Okay, so basically it's getting insights from the market and then using them to create my strategy. Well, there's a lot of things here. So, for example, a lot of what I saw when I interviewed people was that a lot of people are extremely focused on their consumer, which makes sense. But a lot of them don't even do they don't even analyze their competitors, for example. They don't really understand how their market works. They maybe understand how the consumer works. And yes, the consumer is at the center of everything. But when we actually analyze what market is, there's a lot of other variables to it. And these companies were missing those variables. Now, what should marketing do then? What is the role of marketing in organizations? Well, the role of marketing in organizations, in my mind, is to make companies market oriented, helping them think and understand the consumer, but not just that, the market overall. And it's not like an on and off switch where you're either a market oriented person or a market oriented organization. It's a spectrum, right? You can be either very low in market orientation or very high. And for me, this really seems like the best string to pull when we talk about the role of marketing in organizations, because then you have a very specific role. You have to think the business from the outside to the inside, from the market to your company, and how you can fit your company, your value proposal, wherever it is, in your market, considering all the other variables there are, including your consumers, both the ones that you have and the ones that are potential consumers. In my mind, this is what marketing should do. It's what marketing actually does, because in a lot of interviews, people would tell me things that I would be like, okay, that is market orientation. It's not necessarily a very good market orientation, but it's market orientation. And again, this is a topic that it's in literature, not a lot, but it's in literature. There's a huge gap between people. Well, practitioners really want to know more about it, but then researchers don't really offer a lot of information about it. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to close that gap by really understanding what market orientation is, how you can apply it, how you can improve the way that you apply it. And well, a lot of other things associated with it. As I told you, if I start talking about this, I just can't shut up. But I would just start in it by saying that in a very extreme thing, what I'm trying to do, and again, it's very extreme, and obviously there's a lot of work until I get there. But it's actually getting into the philosophical part of marketing, where you actually mess with the definition, which in my mind is that marketing is a market-oriented socio-economic discipline. And there's a lot of things that we could debate here. Why is it a discipline? Why is it not a science or an art? Why is it socio-economic? Why is it market-oriented, which is kind of what we discussed now. So that is in the very extreme what I want to try to do, kind of show how things are being done, kind of give clarity, not necessarily bring a new piece of the puzzle, but just trying to help people understand the puzzle overall.
So I get the theory. How does it work in practice? So, for example, someone's listening to this podcast and they think, oh, that's what I should be doing all along. I need to start doing it tomorrow. What are the first 3 things that someone at a brand who's not currently market oriented should do first thing tomorrow?
Well, actually, one of the things that I've been trying to understand is what are the steps? Actually, your question to it, what are the steps for you to be market oriented? And first of all, the thing is, if people are thinking, oh, I need to start doing this tomorrow. First of all, you're already being market oriented. Maybe you're just being poorly market oriented. So the first thing that you should do is just analyze, just see in your company, in yourself as well, what kind of practices are you making? Are you really market oriented? So are you analyzing your competitors? Do you understand how your market works, in the sense of a lot of companies don't even know their market share. And sometimes when we're in big companies like Procter & Gamble, we get used to, so my market share is X. A lot of the companies, I would say 90+%, because in Portugal, 99% of companies are micro enterprises. So definitely more than 90% of companies don't even know what their market share is. And that's an essential variable of understanding your market, which is, where do I stand in this market? What kind of market share should I go after? So there's a lot of questions to it. So the first stage would definitely be analyze. The second thing would be strategizing. So, okay, if you have the data, if you have the understanding, then make sure that your strategy is based on what you can offer to your consumers, but something that your competitors cannot offer at least as well as you do. And this is something that, again, and people would be surprised by some of these things, which is a lot of companies really don't even analyze their competitors. So then you would see very close value propositions where the consumer would be like, I don't know which company to choose. I don't know which brand to choose. So then the choice would be either price or convenience. I would say strategizing in, like, build your strategy around all the variables of your market, not just your consumer. Otherwise, you're being myopic, right? In the 1960s, Theodore Levitt told us about marketing myopia. And nowadays, it seems like we're so focused on consumer, which we should, but we're just neglecting other stuff. So just strategize. And the third thing is apply that to tactics, because you could have a really good strategy, but you're not able to turn that into tactics and then finally execute it. And that's a very tough one. It's definitely something that we cannot figure out in a podcast, but those would be the 3 stages: analyze, strategize, and then apply those things, the learnings that you have, the understanding that you have, to tactics.
And is there a framework for doing the analysis? Do you have a checklist? Market share is one thing, but in terms of looking at competitors, so say a brand has 10 competitors, is there a tick list? Is it range, how frequently they advertise? What do you think their media spend is likely to be? How do you do that in a thorough way?
Well, the long way to do it is, you can wait for me to tell you what I believe are the main things, because I'm studying that. I'm trying to see what the best ways are, but there's already a lot of information out there. Not necessarily, and I just don't want to promote those things because I'm not 100% sure. I want to research it. I want to understand it. But then some of the things, like if you want, in terms of literature, there's already articles where you can search for how to be market oriented or how to do market orientation. There's already a few articles on that. They have like 10, 15 years, but still extremely good. And a lot of the literature that I see is very old as well, but it's still, in terms of the theory of it and the practicality of it, it's still very recent, still very modern. So definitely you should see that. And then like there are already out there people that talk about it, not exactly to the extent that I would like to talk about it in the future, but they talk about market orientation and everything related to it. Like Mark Ritson, for example, he's one of the people that really is making people at least being aware of market orientation. But then the way that a lot of people see it is very limited. There's a whole world of market orientation out there. That's what I'm exploring. That's probably what a lot of other people want to explore now. So all these questions of how can I be more market oriented? What are the key points? You can either search for this literature. You can research about some of Mark Ritson's suggestions for your companies, for your brands. But then it's something that it's so recent in terms of really understanding it, that I would say that, well, just only in a few months, only a few years, we'll actually know to really properly do it. But yeah, just out there's probably already some stuff that you can see.
Brilliant. So in essence, just Google it, man. Work it out yourself.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah. Also very good advice. Miguel, thank you so much, man. I learned a lot from that, and there's some really solid advice there. And there's real passion in the way you talk about marketing, and it's really refreshing. So I appreciate that. I can guarantee there will be some people that want to speak to you off the back of this podcast to learn more about market orientation. How would you like them to get in touch with you, and what makes a good outreach message to you?
Sure. I mean, if you're someone that is already researching market orientation, I would love to talk with you. We can talk about some of the research that I've been doing as well. We can maybe gather the data that we have. We can talk about it. Definitely. If you're someone that is not researching it or just wants to know a bit more about it, definitely contact me as well. So the best way that you can do it is probably via LinkedIn. Just try and write my name and my surname there, and then you'll get to my profile and just connect with me, send me a message, and then we can go from there. So LinkedIn would be the best option.
Fantastic. Miguel, have a lovely evening. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Tom. Have a lovely evening. Thanks.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That would just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.